Reef tank ICP tests. Are they fad or are they functional? Well, in this video, you're going to find out what you would use them for and when, and what you can expect from them when you do. ICP stands for inductively coupled plasma, and this is basically a test where we take a sample of water from our aquarium and expose it in a lab environment to a certain type of flame. Because of the elemental concentration found within that water, that flame is going to change color, and the machine can read those colors. And then it can report, based on those colors, what the concentration of a certain element is in that water. And they compile all of that data, and then they're going to send us a report of the elemental concentrations that they have found. That's basically what an ICP test is. Now, some of them test for different numbers of elements and minerals and trace elements and things. Some even include pollutants and toxins, and you're just going to have to look at the different ones and figure out which one's going to be the best for your situation. The main providers of ICP that we generally see in the reef keeping hobby are going to be ATI, Triton Labs, Reef Labs, Oceamo, and Fauna Marine. Now, each one of these tests vary a little bit in the number of elements that they actually test for and the ranges that they report on those tests. Again, you're just going to have to look at them and figure out which one's going to work best for your situation. Having said that, just about any of them is going to be able to give you actionable insights into what's going on in the water chemistry of your tank and what adjustments might need to be made based on those results. So when is the right time and when isn't the right time to use an ICP test? Let's talk about it. There's a bunch of different situations where this is going to be a good idea, but generally speaking, one of the times where people use them the most is when they have some sort of a persistent issue with a coral. They have certain corals that are bleaching out, or they're browning out on them, or they're experiencing tissue loss or things like that. In these situations, the tanks have been set up for a while, they've been running, they've been stable, everything's been looking pretty good, and now something has changed. But in this same situation, it often happens where the normal at-home test kits that we use aren't giving us the full picture. The calcium, alkalinity, magnesium, nitrates, phosphate, pH, all that stuff looks okay in our testing, and they're all in ranges with one another, but something is still wrong. In this case, an ICP analysis might give you some information that you don't have with those test kits. Some of them can test for up to nearly 100 different things. Finding out if you have rust or high iron or something like that in your tank from a magnet that is decided to begin rusting, or an aluminum bracket that's actually touching the water when you didn't mean for it to be, or in some cases, even media that you order it off the internet. Definitely do not put media in your tank from places like Temu or Alibaba, etc. Those are usually chock full of aluminum. But you see my point. If things start going downhill, we don't really have an aluminum test kit that we can use at home that's going to give us any good data. So ICP test in these instances is the way to go. I happen to have one here from the people over at Reef Moonshiners, and they sent this to me just for me to check it out and take a look at it, but there's no affiliation. This is what your typical ICP test is going to look like. There's going to be some tubes and vials. They have gloves for you to maintain sterility with, a little filter to filter out the crap that you don't want going into the vials, so you just get the basic elements and stuff like that. They pretty much all look some form of this sort of situation going on here, and you just very carefully take different types of samples from your tank. You mail this off, and in about 2 weeks, you get the results back. Another time that you're going to want to use an ICP analysis is when everything is looking good in your tank, but you know through your research that certain elements like fluoride and iodine and bromine, manganese and vanadium, and there's a bunch of other ones, they get used up really fast. So even your weekly water changes are not enough to keep up with the demand of these trace elements. So using an ICP analysis to find out where they are, it's probably zero unless you add some. But you find out where they are, and you find out how much it's going to take to dose those things to your aquarium to bring that level up to where you need to be. Now, this comes with the caveat that just doing an ICP test one time is not going to tell you the entire story. There are systems that you can get, like Reef Moonshiners and the Triton Labs subscription system, and even the Captivate method, where you do repeated ICP tests once every month. Some people even go as far as doing once a week. For me, that's a little much right now. My tank is not completely loaded with corals with a high consumption, so I don't need to do that yet. But some people do. For most of us, especially with those three programs that I just mentioned, doing a monthly ICP test is enough for those companies to take that information and then tell you how much of these products to dose every day or every X amount of time over the next month before you do the next ICP test. And after a few of them, you will establish a baseline for the aquarium that it is consuming so much of those elements and minerals, and you can offset that with the proper amount of dosing to keep them at the proper levels so the corals have the best chance for growth and coloration. Another time this is very beneficial is to verify your salt consistency. Now, a lot of the better brands of salt manufacturers go ahead and do this for us. Red Sea is an example, and there's a bunch of other ones. They will ICP test each batch of salt that they make, and if you ask, they will provide that information to you, and it will tell you what's reported on their ICP test as far as the levels go. So that's very important. If your salt manufacturer doesn't offer ICP testing, you can do it yourself by mixing up a new batch of salt water, drawing the samples and sending it in. But I would be a little bit cautious about using salt from a company that doesn't ICP test their own salt. If they don't, they have no idea what their actual concentration of elements are. And that's a sort of a quality control issue for me, to be honest. This type of testing is going to be great for those people who are trying to dial their tank in very nicely to where it needs to be for everything to be happy and healthy. And for those people who want to dig in deeper and get more from the results of testing than you're going to get from your at-home test kits. This is to be used when everything is going well and you don't have a major problem yet. It's not going to be very helpful for you if you send off an ICP test after you have some sort of a major issue with your tank. All of the parameters in the tank are going to be all out of whack, and it's going to be a snapshot in time of a disaster. How do you know what to do with that? You really don't. You're going to have to reset the tank and do a whole bunch of stuff anyway. And by the time you're done with that, it's all going to be different anyway. So in that situation, ICP after a crash really isn't going to help. Now, once you get the tank restored back to health again, getting an ICP test done as a baseline for where the tank is now and where you're going to be moving forward. Now, that's a good idea. So, as a quick recap, when do we use ICP testing? When we want to establish a dosing routine of trace elements for the aquarium, when we suspect that there is a contaminant or a pollutant or a toxin of some kind in the aquarium, and be careful on which one you pick here because they all don't test for that. And when you're trying to establish a baseline after some sort of a big crash, once you have recovered the tank to a good state of health. And finally, if you're trying to verify your salt mix or look for some consistency in your salt mix, you can use them for that too. Now, before we get into when ICP testing is not needed, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to the channel? I drop videos like this twice a week and some shorts every now and then as well. And if you really want to help out, you can join as a channel member. I have 5 tiers for you to join, anywhere from $1 up to $100 a month. And that helps me afford to be able to do this full time and keep bringing you videos like this. And I appreciate that. You should also know that we have a Facebook community that is absolutely exploding. We have about 15,000 members right now, and it is the most respectful Facebook community of reefers that you're going to find anywhere on the internet. You can find it by searching Reef Rookies with Logan or look for the link in the description for my link tree that takes you to all my socials. Now, when is ICP testing not needed? In the beginning of a tank's life. If you set the tank up, it's run for a couple of months, it's still maturing, it's still stabilizing. An ICP exam at this moment, that snapshot in time, isn't going to tell you anything actionable really, because in just the time that it takes for the ICP test to come back, chances are the situation, the biome in that tank has already shifted into some other situation, and that ICP test isn't valid anymore. So if you've set up a new tank and you hear somebody say, you have some green hair algae growing, and somebody says, oh, you should ICP test the tank. No, you don't need to do it at this time. The tank is still going to be going through all of these changes. It's going to be stabilizing. It's going to be maturing. The rocks are absorbing nitrates and phosphates, reaching their state of full saturation before the tank hits a stability. After the stability, if you want to do a test and find out where your baseline is with the salt that you're using, that is excellent. I would say anywhere from about 6 months to a year of the tank being set up, that would be a good time frame. Some people can do it a little sooner if they know what they're doing. Some people don't even have to worry about it at all, and that's an argument for another day, if you ever even need to ICP test a tank. Some people don't think so, and there's truth in what they say. But early on in the tank's life, that's not really a time for an ICP test. Another time that they are not recommended or even needed, and this one is a little bit harder to identify, is when the water parameters are not the actual root of the problem. There are other things that we have that are in our reef tanks that can be the root of the problem, like our lighting or our flow patterns in the tank, for example. Potentially even the foods that we're feeding the tank with could be a problem. Now, how you identify if it's water quality, lighting, or flow is through research and talking to others. There's not going to be any test that you can do that's going to tell you, yep, your lighting is the problem, not your water quality. That's just going to have to come from you learning about the hobby, researching things, making posts on my Facebook group so we can help you out with that. And you're going to eventually get there if you ask enough questions. A lot of times people end up over fixating on the water parameters. Now, don't get me wrong here. They are very important and we do need to know what they are. But if we only ever look at the water parameters and we don't consider lighting and flow and import and export of nutrients, we're not looking at the whole picture as a whole ecosystem, for lack of a better way to say that. Water quality is only one part. So that kind of covers when you're not going to need one, right? Early in the tank's life, and if you've identified that there's some other issue. ICP test isn't going to tell you anything. So once we've decided that, yeah, I think it's a good idea to do one and we get it done, how do we interpret the results from that test? What are we going to glean from that information? Well, first up, I want to tell you not to panic and overreact to what you're going to see in this test. It's possible that you're going to get a test back that has a lot of red stuff on it, a lot of negative, a lot of non-detected elements and stuff like that. Don't panic on that, because depending on what ICP test you do, if you do the OES version, it is less sensitive than the MS version. So a lot of those micro trace elements are going to show up as not detected. It doesn't mean that they're not there in some concentration. It just means that that particular test couldn't pick them up at the levels that they were at. It doesn't necessarily mean anything is wrong with your tank. More so, what I would want you to focus on here is repeated ambiguity in the results. So if you've done several tests and consistently over all of those tests, your fluoride, your iodine, and bromine are always flat zero, even though you're dosing, that might mean that you're either not dosing enough or you're not dosing and testing regularly enough for it to be picked up. Some elements, like those ones I just mentioned, they're used up really fast, especially like iodine. When you put iodine in the tank, if you dose that, it's gone completely within like 24 hours or so. So doing monthly ICP tests, you can see how it's not ever going to show anything up on the test. So just don't panic when you see a bunch of red come through on your ICP. Now, you do need to start digging into each one of them, and most of the ICP companies will give you some sort of information about what you need to do to correct those situations, and they all do it a little bit differently. But there will be some information there on what to do. Now, this is a massive point, and I want everybody to take this as, this needs to be a video of its own thing. Do not ever add anything to your reef tank that you are not testing for. So if your ICP test doesn't cover something, don't add it. If you're not doing ICP, you're only doing at-home test kits, Don't add fluoride, bromide, manganese, vanadium, and all these other things that you don't know what the concentration is in your tank or where you need it to be and how much it's going to take to get it there. I would even go as far as to say certain coral foods that we have out these days, the super neon green alien blood stuff when you pour it in the tank, if you're not testing for the levels of amino acids and carbs and proteins in your tank, you have no idea if you have overfed, underfed, or whatever with those types of supplements. That too is a video for another day. But the main point is if you don't test for it, don't add it to the tank. And that's the beauty of ICP. It's going to give you a wider range of things that you can test for. So there's a wider range of things that you can supplement with if needed. If it was my first time ever using it, just getting into ICP and stuff like that, this is how I would use it. I would use the first ICP test as a primary diagnostic tool. You're going to send that thing off. You're going to get that report back. It's going to give you a snapshot in time of what's going on with your tank. It will have some things that you need to correct. You might be high on this and low on that. So you develop a plan. You find out how much it's going to take of those things to put your tank at the level where it needs to be. And most of these companies will work with you, especially like Captivate, Triton, and Reef Moonshiners. They have programs where they will take your information and develop a solution or develop a plan for you and tell you exactly what to do. And then you're going to take that primary test, you're going to take that information, you're going to begin dosing these things to the aquarium. I'm hopefully going to be working with Triton Labs real soon on their subscription plan, and it's a very cool thing. If you haven't heard of it, they're going to take your ICP test once a month, and they're going to take that data, they're going to put together a solution for you and send you a single bottle of stuff that you dose a certain amount every day to your aquarium. And then towards the end of the month, they send you another test, you do it, you send it back, they adjust your dosage, send you a new solution. It's going to be a very, very easy way for people to get the information they need to correctly dose their aquariums. But I digress. They didn't pay me to say that, but I'm excited about doing it because I have Acropora in this tank now and I really want them to thrive. So it's going to be a lot of fun. But use the first test as your diagnostics, and then use the supplementary tests after that as your confirmation that what you're doing is working. ICP is not one of those things that you just do one, it tells you what to fix, and then you're good to go, unless you have a toxin and then you remove that toxin. But even then, you have to do a follow-up test to make sure the toxin has been removed. So it's almost never a one-time, let me ICP test the tank so I'll know what to fix sort of situation. If you're going to do it, it's going to be a commitment to continue doing it. That way you can continue to maintain the biome that you need in your tank with the proper elemental concentrations. Now, some ICP tests actually have this vial in it with the red lid up here. That is actually used for testing your RODI water, and that is an amazing thing. Personal story time. I have a 4-stage RODI unit in my utility room, and that's what I use for all of my aquariums. But I was having a massive issue with diatoms. I don't know where they were coming from. My TDS was 0 coming out of my RODI unit, so I was thinking, there's nothing coming through that water, right? Wrong. So I ordered an ICP test and I ran the reverse osmosis part of the ICP test along with the tank, and I sent it in to Fauna Marine, and I got a report back, and my silicates were through the roof in my RODI unit. And because of that, it allowed me to put a silica buster DI resin, a 5th chamber, onto my RODI. It stripped all the silicates out of the water, and boom, the diatoms began to disappear. Now, here's a quick note. The reason that silicates don't show up on a TDS meter when you check your RODI water is because they don't conduct electricity. They are an organism, living, they're alive. And electricity doesn't pass through their body like it does when there's lead in the water, for example, or something like that. So silicates don't show up on a TDS reading. You have to do a water analysis to find them. So I was able to do an ICP test, verify that I had a problem with the silicates. I made the correction. And then after a month, I sent out another ICP test. It was a confirmatory test, and my silicates were nearly 0. They were like 0.003 or something crazy like that. So they were almost completely gone. So primary and confirmatory. I found the problem. I fixed the problem. ICP testing can be one of the most powerful tools that we have in our toolbox. And I remember a time when it was just coming onto the market and people were saying, man, we're not even going to be able to use that. We can't even really get these, trace elements in single concentrations like this. And then how do you know how much to add? And so on and so forth. Very much the same conversation that's being had right now over aquabiomics. We're going to get there one day, and it's possible that we get individual vials of certain things like Pelagiobacter and put it in our tanks. But we might be a little ways off from that still. I digress. If you know when to use your ICP and why you're using it and what to do with it, it can be one of the best things that we have. And after this video, I hope you have that information. Now you're going to watch that video up on the screen right there. You're going to find it super interesting. It's about parameter balance and control in our reef tanks and how they relate to one another. And I'm going to catch you over there.